Welcome back to Apex Sci-Fi. We often joke that life feels like a simulation. We see coincidences and call them glitches. We see déjà vu and call it a lag spike. But what if the simulation isn't static? What if, like any piece of software, the universe requires maintenance? Imagine waking up one morning to find that the laws of physics have been tweaked for better performance. Gravity has been nerfed. The color spectrum has been optimized. And certain buggy people have been deleted. Now, imagine you are the only person on Earth running on the old version. To the system, you are no longer a citizen. You are an error. An incompatibility. A file that needs to be purged. Today's story is about Arthur Dent, no relation. A man who slept through the most important alarm clock in history, the update to Reality 2.0. This is the story of how a man tried to survive in a world that literally wasn't built for him anymore. If you hate mandatory software updates that break your phone, smash that like button. And if you want to know what the sky looks like when the developers delete the color blue, subscribe and ring the bell. Installing update. 99%. Error. The awakening. Arthur woke up to a sound. Not his alarm clock. Not a bird. It was a sound like a Windows startup chime, but played on a cello inside his own skull. Bing bong. He opened his eyes. Usually the first thing Arthur saw was his ceiling fan. Today the first thing he saw was a text box. It wasn't on his phone. It wasn't on a screen. It was floating in the center of his vision, translucent and glowing white, superimposed over reality. System message. Reality 2.0 successfully installed. Welcome back, user. Please review the changelog. Arthur blinked. The text didn't move. It was burnt into his retinas. What the? Arthur rubbed his eyes. Am I having a stroke? He sat up. Or rather, he tried to sit up. He threw the covers off with his usual force. But the blanket didn't flop onto the bed. It flew across the room and hit the wall with a slap, then slowly floated down to the floor like a feather. Arthur froze. He looked at the text box again. He focused on the button that said, Read Notes. As he focused, the text scrolled. Patch Notes version 2.0. Physics engine. Gravity reduced by 15% to improve joint health and reduce fall damage. Graphics. The color blue has been deprecated due to high rendering costs. Replaced with void purple.npcs. Fixed a bug where aggressive drivers spawn too frequently. Deleted 2.4 million instances. Economy. Money is now digital only. Physical currency will despawn in 24 hours. Bug fix. Addressed an issue where socks would disappear in dryers. Arthur read the list. His heart hammered against his ribs. Gravity reduced, he whispered. He stood up. He pushed off the mattress. He launched into the air. His head hit the ceiling. Thump. He hovered there for a second before drifting slowly back down. Okay, Arthur hyperventilated. Okay, I'm dreaming. This is a lucid dream. He walked to the window to look outside. He screamed. The new world. The sky wasn't blue. The sky was wrong. It was a pulsating, grid-like pattern of dark purple and black squares. It looked like a missing texture in a video game. The sun was still there, but it looked flatter, less blinding. It looked optimized. Down on the street, people were walking. But they weren't walking normally. They were bounding. Long, graceful, loopy strides. They looked like astronauts on the moon. They were smiling. Everyone was smiling. Arthur looked at his neighbor, Old Man Jenkins, who usually yelled at kids to get off his lawn. Jenkins was floating near his mailbox, waving at a squirrel. Beautiful update. Jenkins shouted to no one in particular. Frame rate is so smooth. Arthur grabbed the windowsill. Why am I not floating? He asked himself. He felt heavy. He felt normal. When he hit the ceiling earlier, it hurt. He didn't feel optimized. He looked at the text box in his eyes again. At the very bottom, in small red letters, it read, Warning, 1.1, legacy file detected. Local user, Arthur, failed to sync. Compatibility mode engaged. Legacy file? Arthur whispered. I'm outdated? He ran to the bathroom. He looked in the mirror. His reflection had a red outline around it, like an enemy in a shooter game. Above his head, floating in the mirror, was a tag. Version 1.0 deprecated. The glitch. Arthur tried to leave his apartment. He opened the door. The handle felt weird. It was slippery, vibrating slightly. He stepped into the hallway. Mrs. Higgins was there. She was an elderly woman who usually used a walker. Now she was doing backflips down the hall. Arthur, she beamed. Did you see? They fixed the hip pain bug. They patched it out. Arthur stared at her. Mrs. Higgins, the sky. It's purple. It's void purple, dear, she corrected. It saves memory. Isn't it soothing? Much better than that garish blue. Blue was so resource-heavy. She stopped bouncing. She looked at him closely. Her smile faltered. Arthur, she said, her voice dropping an octave. Why are you vibrating? I'm not vibrating. You are, she said. You look low-res. You look grainy. She reached out to touch him. When her finger touched his arm, a spark flew. Zzzzt. Ow. She recoiled. You clipped me. Your collision box is broken. I'm sorry. Arthur backed away. I think I missed the download. Mrs. Higgins' eyes narrowed. They didn't look like human eyes anymore. They looked like cameras focusing. You are a bug, she whispered. You ruined the immersion. She opened her mouth to scream, but it wasn't a scream. It was a dial-up modem sound. Arthur ran. The incompatibility. Arthur ran onto the street. It was chaos. Not the chaos of panic, but the chaos of a new toy. People were jumping over cars. Cars were hovering, the tire friction update. Arthur tried to blend in. But he was heavy. He had to stomp while everyone else glided. He was hungry. He saw a fruit stand. An apple. He grabbed it. The apple looked perfect. Too perfect. Shiny. Polygon count, high. He took a bite. It didn't taste like an apple. It tasted like static. Like licking a 9-volt battery. Arthur spat it out. Incompatible, he realized. My digestive system is version 1.0. The food is version 2.0. I can't process the new code. He couldn't eat. He couldn't drink the water. It was too wet, optimized for hydration efficiency. It felt like swallowing slime. He was starving in a paradise. Then he saw the police. Or rather, the moderators. They weren't wearing uniforms. They were wearing white morph suits. They hovered 3 feet off the ground. They were scanning the crowd with red laser grids. Scanning for bugs. Scanning for glitches. Arthur ducked into an alleyway. He leaned against a brick wall. The wall was soft. What? Arthur pushed his hand into the bricks. They squished like memory foam. Patch note, Arthur remembered. Reduced fall damage. The world had been softened. But to Arthur it felt suffocating. The world wasn't solid anymore. It was a bouncy castle. He was the only hard thing in a soft world. The admin. Suddenly the sky darkened. The void purple grid turned red. A booming voice echoed from the clouds. It wasn't God. It was a developer on a PA system. Attention users. We have detected a critical error in Sector 7. A legacy asset is causing frame drops. Please stand by for purge. A giant cursor appeared in the sky. A literal white mouse cursor the size of a skyscraper. It began to sweep across the city. It clicked on a stray dog that was barking too loudly, audio glitch. Click. The dog vanished. Deleted. It clicked on a pothole. Click. The pothole smoothed over. Fixed. The cursor moved towards the alleyway. It knew where Arthur was. The red outline around his body was a beacon. Arthur ran. But he was slow. He was running in 1.0 gravity while the moderator cursor moved at 2.0 speed. I need to update. Arthur screamed at the sky. How do I update? Where is the button? He frantically waved his hands in the air, trying to interact with the UI. He swiped left. Swiped right. Pinched to zoom. Nothing worked. The cursor hovered over him. It cast a massive shadow. He felt the select tool highlight him. A blue box formed around his body. Object selected. Arthur _V1. Action. Delete. Arthur fell to his knees. Wait. Don't delete me. I'll report the bugs. I'll be a beta tester. The cursor paused. Query beta tester? Yes. Arthur yelled. I can see the flaws. The bricks are too soft. The apples taste like batteries. You need a control group. You need a legacy user to compare the data. The sky was silent. The developers were discussing. Proposal accepted. The red sky returned to purple. User, Arthur reclassified as debugging tool. Immortality, enabled. Pain receptors, maximized for data collection. A new text box appeared in Arthur's vision. Quest added, find all the bugs. Duration, eternal. The cursor vanished. Arthur sat in the squishy alleyway. He was alive. He was immortal. But he was still version 1.0. He looked at his hand. It was glitching, flickering in and out of existence. A moderator floated down to him. It had no face, just a smooth white surface. Thank you for your service, the moderator said. Please walk into this wall repeatedly. We need to test the collision detection. What? Arthur asked. Do it, or we delete you. Arthur stood up. He walked into the wall. Walk. Again, the moderator said, holding a clipboard. Walk. Harder. Try to clip through. Arthur slammed his shoulder into the bricks. It hurt. Excellent data, the moderator noted. Arthur looked up at the purple sky. He realized he wasn't living in a simulation. He was living in early access, and the developers were cruel gods who only cared about the user reviews. Somewhere in the corner of his eye, a small timer started counting down. Next update, version 3.0, the zombie expansion. Yay, 30 days. Arthur sighed. He backed up and ran into the wall again. It was going to be a long eternity. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. We complain when our apps update and change the interface, but be thankful you update with them. If you are running on the current version of reality, hit that like button. Comment below, what is one bug in real life you wish the devs would patch? I vote for back pain. Subscribe. And don't ignore the system notifications. Update pending.